All right, everyone. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like I've been getting whiplash from this Bitcoin price action recently. So I figured today it might be a good time to discuss whether or not it is a good time to be buying. In order to answer this question, we need to talk about macro and more specifically tariffs. So far in the short term, Bitcoin has held up pretty well. There likely will be some volatility, but what's going to happen in the long term? So, Jeff Park, head of alpha strategies at Bitwise, believes that the long term effects of tariffs on Bitcoin is very positive. And the reason why is because whenever a tariff is implemented, the cost of the goods from foreign countries go higher. And this means that demand for those goods will decrease. And in order to compensate for that, these foreign countries have to stimulate their economies by injecting more liquidity. And as you guys know, whenever there is more liquidity, Bitcoin and other similar type of assets tend to perform very well. Now, in order to determine if it is a good time to be buying Bitcoin, we are going to be looking at two charts. The first one is short term holder realized price, and the second one is short term holder SOPR. Starting off with the short term holder realized price, from a quick glance, you can see how the red line acts as a support level for the Bitcoin price during a bull run. Look at how prices just love to bounce off this line. And for those of you that don't know, the realized price is essentially the purchase price. So the red line that you see, it is the average purchase price for all short-term holders. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because you can now identify areas where Bitcoin is trading at a discount. More specifically, it's at the short-term holder realized price or below. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say we're starting at the beginning of the bull run. You see the price rise to 24K and you're wondering if you want to deploy some capital here. And you could, but if you just waited until the price reached the short-term holder realized price, you could have bought at 20K, which is 20% cheaper than 24K. Now, some of you might not think that is a lot in the grand scheme of things, but if prices actually got to 100K, like it did earlier in this bull run, that is the difference between a 4x return versus a 5x return. The same thing happens here in April. Prices hit 30K. You could deploy here, but if you just waited until we reached the short-term holder realized price line, you could have been buying at around 26K. You can see this play out over and over again. Here's an example from last year. You could have purchased Bitcoin at 73K when the price was pretty far away from the short-term holder realized price, or you could have just waited until price reached the short-term holder realized price and bought at 58K. And here, where prices went below the short-term holder realized price at 57K, 56K, and 54K. If you had bought in these areas, you would have netted about a 50% return in compared to today's prices. If you had bought at 73K, you would have only profited about 15%, which is a huge difference. The next chart I want to take a look at is the short-term holder SOPR. This chart simply just tells you whether or not the short-term holders are selling at a profit or at a loss. The deep value zones are where you see them selling at a big loss. And the larger the magnitude, the bigger the discount. Using the same time frame as our previous example from last year, it would have signaled that we could have bought here at 54K in September, again 54K in August, about 56K in July, and 58K in May. These would have been the ideal times to be buying before prices ripped to over 100K after the election. So is now a good time to be buying? First, we need to determine if the bull market is over. Looking at this liquidity chart with a 10-week lead time, liquidity is about to go into an uptrend. Directionally, Bitcoin has followed liquidity 86% of the time. Do what you will with that information, but I believe the bull run is not over. Going back to the short-term holder SOPR chart, we are actually currently slightly in the green, so it's not the most optimal time to buy. I would prefer if we were in the deep value zone, like we were here in September, August, July, and even in May. If we look at the short-term holder realized price chart, we are currently in the red. So I wouldn't blame you if you had capital and you wanted to deploy it really badly that you do right now. But for me personally, I'm probably going to wait until we get below 80K. And that's going to be it for today's video. If you do have any comments, make sure to write them below. I will respond back to every single one of them. And if you do want timely updates, make sure to like and subscribe. I post every week. I'll see you next time.